NASA and Montana State University are ready to send loads of bacteria into the stratosphere, but don't worry, it's all for science. Teams across the U.S. will release about 100 balloons during the August 21st total solar eclipse. They'll float around 85,000 feet in the air, and each balloon will have cameras for video and photos, as well as a tracker. Some of those balloons will also carry samples of a highly resistant bacteria. NASA scientists want to see how it reacts to Mars-like conditions. The upper part of Earth's stratosphere has conditions very similar to Mars's atmosphere at the surface. The air is thin and the environment is cold and full of radiation. During the eclipse, the conditions will become even more like Mars. The experiment aims to test the limits of living things on Earth. Eventually, the balloons will pop and devices will send the data and bacteria down to the ground. NASA will compare the stratosphere bacteria with samples left on Earth to see what changed. Researchers say they hope to learn a lot from this balloon experiment, and bonus, the cameras on board will live stream the eclipse on the internet for millions to watch.
You and I in a little toy shop, buy a bag of balloons with the money we've got, set them free at the break of dawn, till one by one they were gone. Back at base, box in the software, flash the message, something's out there, floating in the summer sky. 99 red balloons go by.
Breaking news tonight. An American fighter jet has shot down another unidentified object, this time over Canada. Just one day after a warplane took similar action over Alaska, and 1 week after a Chinese spy balloon was shot down off the Carolina coast. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says the shootdown happened over the Yukon Territory. In a tweet tonight, Trudeau said he ordered NORAD to take down the object that had violated Canadian airspace.
The White House says the latest aerial intruder was floating at an altitude about 40,000 feet and had no maneuverability, posing a threat to civilian aviation.
We have no further details about the object at this time, including any description of its capabilities, purpose, or origin.
The U.S. military is scouring the frozen Arctic for the wreckage, while also searching off the Carolina coast for the payload of a huge Chinese surveillance balloon shot down last week. All bases where U.S. nuclear forces are located were ordered to cover up as the Chinese airship passed over the United States. Initially spotted above Montana, the balloon did not loiter over any other locations. Instead, floating across the U.S. as fast as the wind would carry.
That is a big kill. The balloon is completely destroyed.
I'm hovering over Montana, searching for some clues. I'm afraid I'll get shot down with the Chinese spy balloon blues. It's not researching the weather, something more to prove. Whether we're warned or whether whatever, I got the Chinese spy balloon.
This is from Death Magnetic, one of the singles released in 2008 on the date of the eclipse. Not playing the audio. Spores are collected. Revival organism causes a zombie apocalypse. Spores under their control. And it's time for the U.S. to basically pay the piper because we have waged war around the world. Russia makes samples. They put them up in a balloon across the United States. Here you see the trajectory, very similar to the eclipse path that we showed you guys. American forces spot the craft, but the altitude is unreachable. What were these balloons at 80,000 feet that NASA dropped? This is from 2008, you guys. Follows the jet stream, windborne. There's your strain, zombie apocalypse. Everything we've been talking about. This is right out of the FX series, The Strain. And on the actual day of the eclipse, they showed us that the master is here.
What is this bioweapon shown here in the video? In the video, there's this creature and they collect the spores that the organism produces, and that's what creates the bioweapon. This bioweapon thus creates a zombie apocalypse. And this zombie apocalypse brings through just all sorts of devastation and, of course, brings in the New World Order. I had to dig to find that word in Russian. It is not readily available on any websites. I found it in the catalog of fossil spores and pollen, and you can see the Russian word down there. I believe it means spore, but I don't speak Russian. There's images of it on all sorts of different types of spores, and it comes from fossils. As you can see, this fossilized spores is dust from the earth. This is important. In the Old Testament, there is a test for the adulterous bride. Now remember that the church, those who believe in Yeshua Jesus, are referred to as the bride of Christ. So this test for the adulterous bride is a shadow picture of all sorts of things that will unfold over time. Now let's look at the test for the adulterous bride. The priest shall take holy water in an earthenware vessel and take some of the dust that is on the floor of the tabernacle and put it in the water. So this test for the adulterous bride involves dust from the floor of the tabernacle. The full test for the adulterous bride can be found in Numbers 5, but I'm just going to give you the gist of it. So she's made to drink this bitter water, and if she has defiled herself and broken faith with her husband, now remember, this is a shadow picture. Marriage is a shadow picture of our relationship to Yeshua. So Yeshua is our husband, the church is the bride of Christ, okay? So if the bride has been unfaithful to her husband, the curse shall come upon her, and it will cause her thigh to rot, her womb to swell, and she will have bitter pain, and she will become a curse among her people. If the woman has not defiled herself, and she is clean, then she shall be free, and she shall conceive children. Conceiving children is a picture of her being incredibly fruitful.
Now, where did Metallica get this idea that balloons would be dropped over the United States with poison in them and disease? Well, they probably got the idea from the vengeance balloons that the Japanese were planning on launching over the Pacific Northwest, in which a person in Bly, Oregon, several people died because one of these exploded. They had bombs and disease. The first balloons were launched in 1944. They began landing over the United States. This is real. This is history. It was called Operation Cherry Blossom. 9/22/1945 was the scheduled date. Unit 31 was a specialized Japanese military that specialized in biological and chemical warfare. And their plan was to drop bubonic plague, cholera, and smallpox. The 731 group also did live human dissections. This is all in Wikipedia. 6 Americans were killed near Bly, Oregon, and this is unbelievable because this is real. Because we dropped the nuclear bomb, they were never able to launch these. It was scheduled to launch September 22nd, but was not realized because it surrendered Japan in August. So yes, Japan did plot to unleash a plague on the United States with balloons. Now, here are the balloons. They look much like the balloons that NASA launched over the United States during the eclipse. As we just saw Metallica, they showed the exact same scenario, except Russia was the one launching the bombs. The plan of the Japanese was to create forest fires with the bombs and also unleash disease into the United States. Some of these were filled with fleas that were infected with bubonic plague. The eclipse occurred on the 233rd day of the year, and these balloons from Japan were 33 feet in diameter, and their cargo was a 33-pound anti-personnel fragmentation bomb. They plan on launching these off of submarines that reached off of our coast, and then they were going to load them up with disease and launch these balloons, have them be carried by the jet stream over the United States. Here are the balloons here. Here's a map of where many of these balloons fell. Some reached all the way to Detroit. And in this strange occurrence, in me trying to research this Paenobacillus xerothermidurans, I came to California State University, Los Angeles, and did a search, and there was a person by the name of Jessica Cisneros who did a speech specifically about the Paenobacillus in 2012. I got a warning, not a secure site. They wouldn't let me into the site. And then when I tried to research this woman's name, it came up under some act that said she had the protection of scrubbing her name from Google searches. There's something going on here, and I need your guys' help. Biological tests and morphology of this bacillus fit no described species, according to studies. And when CNN does pieces like this, the big one is coming, and it's going to be a flu pandemic. This was in April of this year. When they do stories like this, and they talk about the 1918 pandemic that killed 50 million people worldwide, and they say our only hope is flu vaccines, we know this is pre-programming us for something else.
Nights of the air, super